Imagine waking up every morning with the nagging feeling that you have untapped potential within you, yet a paralyzing sense of inability to act. It's easy to succumb to the temptation to label yourself as lazy, unmotivated, or even a failure. But what if the root of the problem lies not in simple laziness, but in a deep loss of connection with something more important? Prepare to discover the shocking truth behind this state. It's not about a lack of hard work, but about a loss of direction, purpose, and meaning in life. By the end of this exploration, you will gain valuable knowledge that will help you rediscover yourself and rekindle your inner fire. The revelation that will be presented at the end has the power to fundamentally change your perception of life. Embark on a journey into the depths of human experience, where philosophy, psychology, and timeless wisdom come together to illuminate the way forward. Together, we will uncover truths that inspire, teach, and empower, offering tools to overcome life's challenges and find clarity in moments of doubt. Consider what you mean when you call yourself lazy. In today's world, we are often conditioned to equate busyness with value and productivity with worth. If we are not constantly achieving something tangible, society tells us that we are failing or falling behind. But is this a fair assessment of your true worth? The famous psychologist Carl Jung once remarked, "Clarity emerges only when you look inward. The external world only produces dreams, while self-knowledge leads to awakening." There is a profound truth in these words. The feeling of being lost often arises from an excessive focus on external attributes of success and the pursuit of approval from others, while the inner voice that guides us to true self-expression remains unheard. The feeling of stagnation or being stuck is not always the result of insufficient effort or self-discipline. Often, the root of the problem lies in the dissonance between external actions and internal needs. The mind and body resist when there is no meaning and harmony with one's own essence. Think back to times when you were filled with genuine inspiration from a project, a dream, or even a simple idea. In such periods, the feeling of laziness is unlikely to arise, because motivation is born naturally when we come into contact with something that has deep meaning for us. What is sometimes mistaken for laziness may be a signal coming from the depths of the subconscious, indicating a loss of connection with one's true purpose. Abraham Maslow, the eminent psychologist who created the famous hierarchy of needs, considered self-actualization to be the peak of human development. This is the stage at which a person unlocks their full potential and finds deep meaning in life. However, climbing to this summit requires an understanding that periods of confusion or lack of motivation are not a mark of failure, but rather signs of change, moments when old patterns of behavior and beliefs are no longer useful, and new ones have not yet had time to form. Although these transitional stages can be uncomfortable, they can be among the most transformative in life. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what are you running from? What dreams or desires have been put on the back burner because they seem too difficult, vague, or unattainable? Sometimes we tend to call ourselves lazy because it's easier than facing the fear of failure or the discomfort associated with stepping into the unknown. However, it is in these buried dreams that the key to rediscovering one's purpose and passion for life may lie. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard drew a parallel between the feeling of confusion and wandering through vast, unfamiliar expanses. At first, the feeling of disorientation overwhelms, and choosing a direction becomes a difficult task. However, by stopping to carefully observe and reflect, one begins to discern subtle landmarks, features of the terrain, the path of the sun, or the murmur of water, indicating the way forward. Similarly, when life circumstances throw us into a state of being lost, the answers often lie in the very moments of silence that we subconsciously avoid. In today's world permeated by universal interconnectedness, silence and stillness can feel alien and unnatural. We fill our days with noise, distractions, and an endless stream of tasks just to avoid being alone with ourselves. But this is the paradox. It is in these quiet moments that clarity begins to emerge. By distancing ourselves from external noise and turning inward, we begin to listen to the voice of our intuition, to that inner compass that unerringly points to what is truly valuable and important to us. What if the reason for feeling lost isn't a failure that has befallen us, but a call to something greater? What if this moment of disconnection serves as a way for our mind and soul to urge us to rethink our current way of life? It's not a failure, but an invitation, a unique opportunity to get closer to a deeper and more authentic version of ourselves. Throughout the ages, outstanding minds and talents have often encountered periods of seeming confusion. Consider Leonardo da Vinci, who could spend days or even weeks in a state that outwardly resembled inactivity, immersing himself in observation, sketching, or deep reflection. To an outside observer, this might have looked like a pointless waste of time, but it was in these moments of solitude and peace that his genius was born, leading to groundbreaking discoveries that later had a tremendous impact on the world. It's worth asking, what if we look at periods of stagnation not as a manifestation of failure, but as an essential step in life's journey? What if this time is given to stop, think, and rethink our own values and aspirations? In the following sections, we will delve into the reasons behind the feeling of being lost and explore practical steps that can help restore the connection with our inner calling. The most important discoveries, capable of changing our understanding of ourselves and our potential, are yet to come. So, let's examine the origins of the feeling of disconnection. Why do so many people in the modern world feel lost? The answer lies in established patterns of behavior that are formed from an early age. From childhood, we are offered a ready-made scenario for success: diligent study, stable work, material well-being, the acquisition of our own housing, and finally retirement. And while these stages can provide a certain structure, they do not address a deeper question: what gives life true meaning? Viktor Frankl, an outstanding psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and the author of the profound book Man's Search for Meaning, once noted that it is not the circumstances themselves that make life unbearable, but rather the absence of meaning and a clear purpose in it. His work serves as a powerful reminder that even the most prosperous life, devoid of a sense of purpose, can turn into an empty shell, while a life filled with meaning can provide strength and support in the most unimaginable trials. If a person feels lost and disoriented, perhaps the root of the problem lies in the fact that the life plan offered to them has ceased to correspond to their inner aspirations. Perhaps they have achieved certain social heights, but have not found satisfaction. Or on the contrary, they desperately tried to meet these standards, but failed, and now consider themselves a failure. In any case, the essence of the problem lies not in laziness or lack of diligence, but in a deep discrepancy between actions and the deep values of a person. In such a situation, it is necessary to stop and ask yourself, what are the true values? Not those that in the opinion of society should be, but those that are really important to the person themselves. Maybe it's creativity, a deep connection with other people, constant personal growth, or making a contribution to the common good. Unfortunately, many people never find the time to determine their key values, which, in fact, are the foundation for a meaningful life. Without them, it is easy to lose your bearings and feel like you are wandering aimlessly through life, like without a compass. From the point of view of psychology, the feeling of being lost is often explained by what scientists call existential frustration. This state of deep dissatisfaction arises when our actions diverge from a person's fundamental need for meaningful existence. It is important to understand that this frustration is not a vice, but rather a valuable signal, a kind of internal compass, indicating the need to revise the life path and priorities. But how to start this difficult process of self-discovery? The first step is to accept the current state. At first glance, this may seem paradoxical, but resisting the feeling of being lost only increases despair. Instead, you should recognize your experiences, realize that this is only a temporary stage, a natural part of the human experience. Even the most outstanding personalities in their lives have faced moments of uncertainty and doubt. The difference between those who eventually find their way and those who get stuck in a dead end lies in their willingness to meet these feelings not with condemnation, but with curiosity. Imagine your life as an endless, unexplored ocean, At the moment, you may feel adrift, not seeing the shores. However, like sailors navigating by the stars, you have internal tools that can point you in the right direction. Intuition, passion, and values. The task is to trust these tools, even when the path ahead seems foggy. One effective way to connect with the innermost parts of your soul is through journaling. Indulge in recording your thoughts, fears, and dreams, discarding all criticism and self-judgment. Unleash your subconscious, allowing it to pour forth without reservation. Over time, certain trends and patterns will begin to emerge before you, like beacons pointing to what truly matters in your life and in what direction your heart yearns to go. Another helpful practice is cultivating mindfulness. Dedicate time to being in silence, whether through meditative techniques or simply being alone with your thoughts in a peaceful setting. These moments of introspection can unlock insights and ideas that are otherwise drowned out by the hustle and bustle of daily life. Another important step on the path to self-discovery is to stop comparing yourself to others. Social media and modern culture constantly bombard us with carefully retouched images of other people's achievements and successes. It's easy to fall into the trap of mistakenly believing that everyone around you is thriving and in harmony with themselves, while you are struggling to cope with difficulties. However, it should be remembered that these glossy snapshots represent only a fragment of someone else's story. Every person, no matter how successful they may seem, has faced periods of uncertainty and doubt. Reflecting on these concepts, ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped measuring your worth by the standards of others and instead focused on your unique life path? What if the very traits you tend to consider weaknesses or failures are actually hidden strengths, waiting to be developed and flourished? Human life, like nature, is subject to the changing seasons, including periods of blossoming, fruiting, withering, and renewal. If an individual experiences a sense of confusion, they may be going through a stage of decline or rest, when former beliefs and habits die off, preparing the ground for the birth of something new. This period should neither be rushed nor avoided. On the contrary, it should be used for self-reflection, recuperation, and preparation for further growth. In ancient Greek philosophy, there is a concept called kairos, which denotes the most favorable moment for action. Unlike chronological time, kairos is time filled with meaning and harmony. In moments of confusion, it may not be worth striving for immediate and radical change. Instead, it is advisable to accumulate knowledge, strengthen your inner world, and await the opportune moment for action. In the future, specific steps will be considered to reconnect with personal purpose and overcome feelings of being lost. These steps will help build a route back to yourself, rediscover motivation and direction in life. It is important to remember that the deepest awareness, capable of radically changing the worldview, is yet to come. After realizing the current location and the emerging understanding of the reasons for feeling lost, it is time to explore ways to move forward. This is not about forcibly imposing change or creating a false image, but about discovering small but significant steps that can bring a person back to themselves. One of the first and most transformative actions is reconnecting with passions. It is necessary to ask yourself, what brings true joy? What activities make you lose track of time? Often, it is these activities that ignite the inner fire, reminding you of your true essence, free from social stereotypes. Passion does not always manifest itself loudly or on a large scale. It can be quiet, like the satisfaction of solving a complex problem, the joy of working in the garden, or the excitement of acquiring new knowledge. It is important to start small. Reviving passions does not require radical changes, but consists of creating moments of connection with what fills life with energy and meaning. Immersion in the state of flow, a concept developed by the eminent psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, opens new horizons for those seeking a way out of the labyrinth of lostness. Flow is not just a hobby. It is a transcendent state where time loses its power and consciousness is completely absorbed in the present moment. Discovering activities that can evoke this state becomes a powerful tool in combating the feeling of aimlessness. These moments serve as a vivid reminder that life is not only about striving for external achievements, but also about a deep, all-encompassing experience of every moment. An equally important step on the path to finding oneself is rethinking personal goals. Feeling lost often leads to a state of apathy and avoidance of long-term planning, which seems like an overwhelming task. However, it is worth remembering that goals do not have to be immutable or perfect. They serve as guideposts, pointing the direction of movement and giving a sense of perspective. It is recommended to start small, defining for yourself one, but significant goal, achievable in the near future, within a week or a month. This could be reading a captivating book, starting a new exciting hobby, or communicating with a person whose ideas inspire. These small but important victories create momentum, demonstrating that progress is possible even when the path ahead seems foggy and uncertain. When embarking on defining new horizons, one should remember the importance of compassionate attitude towards oneself. Often, people become the strictest judges for themselves, setting unattainable standards and criticizing themselves for the slightest mistakes. In this regard, it is worth recalling the wise saying of the Buddhist mentor Thich Nhat Hanh: "To love yourself is to understand yourself." Self-compassion is not indulgence in weaknesses, but recognition of one's own human nature, awareness that overcoming difficulties is an integral part of development, and understanding that everyone deserves kindness and understanding. It is worth considering how life will be transformed if you treat yourself with the same level of understanding and support that you usually provide to a close friend. What if you consider moments of confusion not as failures, but as valuable lessons and opportunities for personal growth? Another powerful tool for transformation is gratitude. In times of uncertainty, there is a tendency to focus solely on shortcomings and problems. However, gratitude can change perspective, helping to see the beauty and abundance that are already present in life. It is recommended to start a daily practice of expressing gratitude, starting with small things. For example, writing down 3 things that a person is grateful for every day. Over time, this practice will retrain thinking to perceive positive aspects, strengthening resistance to stress, and deepening the sense of connection with the world around. In the life search, it is extremely necessary to maintain connection with others. Loneliness can exacerbate the feeling of being lost, clouding the perspective and preventing a holistic picture. In such moments, it is worth turning to close friends, relatives, or experienced mentors whose words can instill confidence and inspiration. An open conversation, the opportunity to share your doubts and anxieties, can be a healing experience. It often turns out that many people have faced similar challenges, and awareness of this fact serves as a powerful source of support and incentive to move forward. Let's also consider the influence of fear, which is one of the main obstacles on the path to rethinking one's destiny. Fear of failure, condemnation, or change can paralyze the will and keep a person in a familiar but unsatisfying rut. However, fear should not be seen as an enemy. This is a natural reaction to leaving the comfort zone, a kind of signal that a person is on the threshold of personal growth. It is important not to avoid fear, but to face it. It is necessary to ask yourself questions about the worst and best-case scenarios. It often turns out that the reward for overcoming fear far outweighs the potential risks. Moving along the path of self-knowledge, it is helpful to remember the concept of life seasons, which was mentioned earlier. A feeling of being lost, and it may indicate the onset of winter, a period of silence and deep self-analysis. But winter is not the end of the road, but a time for preparation and rethinking, a necessary phase before spring revival. It is important to believe that this period is temporary, and with its completion, a person will become stronger, wiser, and find greater harmony with their true self. Let's recall the inspiring story of J.K. Rowling, whose life was full of hardships before she gained worldwide fame thanks to the Harry Potter book series. She went through difficult times, being an unemployed single mother desperately trying to provide for herself and her child. It was during this period that she began writing the story that would forever change her destiny. As the writer herself once noted, hitting rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I was able to build a new life. Perhaps each person's personal path is unique, but the basic principle remains unchanged. A feeling of being lost is not a dead end, but rather an opportunity for rethinking, new discoveries, and renewal. Continuing to reflect, we will approach a deep awareness that can radically change the perception of ourselves and our place in the world. As we move towards the essence of this journey, it is time to face the deepest truth associated with the state of being lost. This awareness has the potential to change everything. Being lost is not a curse, but a valuable gift. It is this state that allows you to reconsider your beliefs, priorities, and plans for the future. While it may not seem like it right now, feeling lost is often a precursor to upcoming changes. Imagine a metaphorical forest, a dense thicket where a traveler lost among the trees feels like there's no way out. It's easy to succumb to despair when the paths fade into the twilight. However, this very forest, despite its apparent hostility, holds inexhaustible potential. Unexplored trails await their discoverers, and hidden glades, illuminated by sunlight, beckon with their beauty. The ecosystem, full of life and growth, pulsates with energy. Getting lost in the forest, strangely enough, means getting a chance to stop, carefully examine the surrounding world, and reconnect with your deepest instincts. Similarly, feeling lost in life is a kind of invitation to rethink your values and find your inner compass. One of the most effective ways to overcome this difficult period is to cultivate curiosity. When faced with a difficult situation, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" it's worth reframing it. What lessons can I learn from this situation? Curiosity has an amazing ability to turn problems into new opportunities, presenting obstacles not as insurmountable barriers, but as steps on the path to personal growth. Now, let's go back to the concept of purpose. Many people mistakenly believe that purpose is something monumental and unattainable, a defining mission intended exclusively for the chosen few. But what if purpose isn't a final destination, but rather a continuous process? What if it's formed through the small, conscious actions we take every day? Viktor Frankl, an outstanding thinker, argued that the meaning of life is not something that can be accidentally discovered, but rather something that a person actively constructs through the prism of their reactions and decisions. It is suggested to start with a careful look at everyday life. What seemingly insignificant actions fill the heart with a feeling of satisfaction or quiet joy? Perhaps it's selfless help to a comrade, passionate learning of a new skill, or even simple care for one's own well-being. These moments may seem trivial at first glance, but together they form a solid foundation for a sense of completeness and meaning in existence. When an individual focuses their attention on these small but purposeful efforts, they gradually, step by step, restore the lost sense of direction and purpose. Another transformative idea is to perceive life's journey as a continuous series of experiments. In moments of confusion and uncertainty, it is natural to fear making the wrong decision. But what if there are no wrong decisions in reality, but only valuable opportunities for learning and growth? Adopting an experimental mindset allows a person to boldly try new endeavors, freeing themselves from the oppressive pressure of striving for perfection. Whether it's exploring uncharted career horizons, launching an ambitious creative project, or consciously stepping out of one's comfort zone, it should be seen as a unique opportunity to gather information about what resonates with the soul and fills it with energy. And then there comes a moment of decisive and all-encompassing realization. One is not as lost as they seem. The truth is that somewhere deep within their being, the answers to all questions are already hidden. Perhaps they are buried under layers of fears, doubts, or socially imposed expectations, but they exist, patiently waiting for the moment when they will be discovered. This understanding simultaneously grants liberation and poses a challenge, for it returns the burden of responsibility to the person themselves. It calls on them to trust themselves, listen to the voice of their intuition, and act, even when the path ahead does not seem perfectly clear. It's worth pondering. Every great journey begins with a single step, often taken in complete uncertainty. explorers who mapped uncharted lands, innovators who created something out of nothing, and ordinary people who overcame incredible difficulties. All began their journey without the slightest idea of how it would end. What did these people have in common? A willingness to move forward, to embrace the unknown with courage and curiosity. Reflecting on this life journey, one should remember the words of the poet Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This question is a call to take responsibility for one's own story. No one else can live it for a person, and no one else's idea of success or happiness can replace their own. In the search for a new identity, an individual faces the need to choose a path of self-discovery. The first step might involve deliberate stillness, a moment of quiet contemplation that allows the mind to break free from the chaos of thoughts and emotions. In this pause, like the calm before a storm, clarity can emerge, revealing future actions and aspirations. An alternative approach involves reconnecting with your inner compass. Passions, values, and intuition, these guides of the soul, often muted by the noise of everyday life, can point the way toward a more meaningful existence. It may require a bold step into the unknown, an action based on faith that the path will reveal itself as you proceed. It's important to realize that feeling lost is not a life sentence, but rather a starting point for a new chapter. It's a chance to rethink your life, discard imposed stereotypes, and create your own version of happiness. In such moments, it's easy to succumb to self-criticism, but it's essential to remember that someone struggling with life's difficulties is demonstrating courage and resilience, not laziness or weakness. Believe that the current experience, no matter how challenging it seems, is shaping your personality, strengthening your character, and preparing you for new achievements. Clarity, purpose, and self-realization are not unattainable dreams, but entirely realistic goals within reach. This personal journey, unique to each individual, begins here and now, with self-acceptance and faith in your abilities.